Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. Today, working on the LX570. If you follow my channel, you probably know about this vehicle. It's a 2008 Lexus LX570. It's sort of the family adventure rig, though it can handle everything. There's a lot of stuff I want to do to it still to make it a little more wheeling off-road capable. Not doing those mods today, but some things to come would be gears, lockers, sliders, skids. Once those are in place, this thing is pretty ready to go. I mean, it's kind of ready to go right now, but I'll beat up the undercarriage. These kind of steps are already a little beat up. So I do have bumpers and racks and stuff to get me out of a pickle if I need to. So winch, more stuff to carry on the rear, front and rear is where I'm gonna hit a lot of times anyway. So that's the descent, off-road, bumpers, up top, roof rack. We do have the snorkel, monster something snorkel. And then we're sitting on 37-inch Toyo RT trails on Relations race wheels. That stuff's all old. That's been on there for a while, and it's wrapped. But today I'm working on some usability stuff. So I'm going to be finding a place for and installing the Bluetti Charger 1. And I'm going to be talking about this a little bit, why I'm doing this in the Lexus instead of a dual battery system. I have dual batteries in a couple other vehicles, and I'm actually working today as well on a dual battery system in the Tundra, but I'm not doing a traditional dual battery setup in the Lexus, and I'll talk more why. I'm also going to be running, while I'm doing some wiring, running wires and antenna for my ham radio, the Yaesu FTM-500. So I'll show you where I figured out where to put that. A couple other little odds and ends, and then I put a little light in the hatch on the lift gate area because desperately needed a light there. I actually did that already. I think I filmed it, hopefully. I'm trying to remember. I've talked about this in a handful of recent videos. I'm trying to remember to actually film some of the modifications that I'm doing and walk you through them as I do them. So that way I can tell you a little bit more about why I do things the way I do, why maybe I'm mounting this thing here instead of somewhere else, and you can learn as I learn, and you can learn from the mistakes that I make. So let's just get into it. All right, so under here, I took a lot of the Lexus has basically this whole area covered in. I took a lot of it out. I still have it. I may put it back in. I'm not sure. But over here, we have a full throttle battery. I swapped that early on. So that's my starter battery, and it does run a lot of my lights, light bar, roof lights, some other stuff. I have a little battery tender hooked up to this. I don't even know if you can see what I'm showing you. Yeah, you can. Nice. So a lot of my vehicles have battery tenders, or at least the cable to hook up a battery tender. These are just the Noco X Connects, just because I've been using those for years, and my vehicles sometimes sit for weeks at a time. Do they need tending? I don't know. Sometimes, because you got stuff like the Garmin power switch that's connecting to Bluetooth and whatnot. There's like some little accessories that have a little bit of drain on here. So battery tender, full throttle battery. I do have a Garmin power switch in here already. Again, that's powering a lot of the lights. I'll probably hook my radio, the FTM-500, to this. Radio guys will tell you your cleanest signal, you should always just connect directly to the battery, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna go through the power switch, so that way I can turn my radio off and on through this, but also I can run it with the battery off. Kind of the reason I'm doing that is the power switch is smart and will quit sending power to your devices once it reaches a certain threshold. I don't remember off the top of my head what it is, but I think it's like 11 volts it cuts off. So it doesn't allow the accessories to kill your starter battery, and sometimes I forget to turn my ham radio off. So we'll hook it through there, and then the Charger 1, so the Bluetti Charger 1 is going to go directly to the battery. And I'm actually, while I'm doing this, I actually, love them or hate them. All the PhDs of electrical engineering tell me they're snake oil, but EMP shields I like to add to my vehicles, and I didn't have one on this. So theoretically, and there's testing on the website, empshield.com. I do have a coupon code with them. LLOD will save you like $50 off. It's a pretty good coupon. If you have questions, if you're curious, I'm not the expert, but they are the experts, and you can call their customer service hotline anytime, and they will fill you in. I'm an affiliate with them. They're not sponsoring the video or anything like that, though. But I try to add these on. I have them not on all my vehicles. I wish I had them on all my vehicles. I should have them on all my vehicles. I'm working on it. But I'm going to add this to this as well. And again, that theoretically kind of EMP proofs everything hooked up to the 12-volt system here. So we'll do that. And then we have this, which is the Bluetti Charger 1. So this guy here, basically, there's some other ways you can kind of hack this as well. What this does is it'll work with Bluetti power systems, but it's kind of a universal thing. It'll work with most of your power systems, your jackers, your Goal Zeros, things like that. And a lot of times when you're charging from the vehicle, you'll only be able to charge at with a cigarette lighter. So at 10 amps at 12 volts, so 120 watts maximum is what you're usually going to be doing, unless you have some kind of DC voltage, DC charger, something. You're tricking the system somehow. And people have been doing that for years. And then Bluetti came out with this one that does it in a unit, relatively affordable, and again, relatively universal. So what this does is takes your 12-volt input from your battery, your alternator charge essentially, puts it in here, and then ups the voltage to output at a higher voltage and therefore a higher wattage. So you can take 10 amps off of this, and 10 amps at 12 volts would be charging at 120 watts. But if you took 10 amps and you bumped it up to 56 volts, so a lot of the solar chargers can handle higher voltage through their solar ports because a lot of solar panels are higher voltage. So if you take that 10 amps, bump it up to 56 volts, then you can charge it 560 watts, which is, 5 times as much, basically. So we're going to hook that up through the app. I haven't actually used this yet. Through the app, you can set the voltage. So if you have a little battery pack that requires, maximum of 40 volts or whatever, you can bump it down, and then you would be 10, 40, you'd be charging at 400 watts. So it's relatively lightweight and compact and easy. Just got an input and an output, and then again, you can set your voltage through an app. So I'm going to install that, and when I'm installing this, I'll talk a little bit more about why. All right, this next part is kind of a choose your own battles. You'll need to run the wire for the Charger 1 to the battery, and then I should have showed it before I started running it. Comes with this really nice sleeved wire. So that's long enough to do a full run to your trunk or whatever. That's kind of where I'm going to put it, in the back behind the second row. So there's a bunch of ways to do this. You could go through the firewall inside, through all the little panelings, and get back to where you're going. This is a pretty thick gauge wire. I don't really feel like doing that, so I'm just going, and this will vary by vehicle, obviously, down through a hole here, and then I'm going to go under, attached to the frame, essentially, and then pop up through here. Exposure's way off. And then pop up through a little grommet underneath into where I'm trying to go back here. So that's what we're doing now, basically fishing wire. I won't bore you with that, but I'll show you once I have it. Okay, so that might have been easier to go through the firewall, but basically we went back, routed the wire around through this little hole here, up in the wheel well. So then it comes out there, zip tied it back there, and then I ran it behind that. And then I'm not gonna climb under here, but tucked it up, zip tied it up above basically all the AHC stuff under here. Then found the grommet. We'll climb under here to show you the grommet up. But that goes up there. So pulled this little step panel off. That's where the grommet is. Punch 2 little holes in the grommet, and then that'll come back up, and then I'll mount that thing right here. All right, so we got the wire running, and then it's going to go into this. This is the air down, gear up system back here. It has some 80/20. There's actually a nice little spot. That way, I'm going to mount it there, so that way it has some ventilation, and it's out of the way, because this whole area is actually storage, and then I'll still be able to access it without too much trouble if I need to. Okay, beautiful. So wires coming into this little breaker box, basically a fuse that you can reset if it trips. That's coming in to the bottom of the charger one. And then the output comes out into MC4s. So MC4s are kind of the universal solar output. So these will then adapt to whatever your power station uses. So I believe for like the Bluetti, they have, I think it's a barrel, but I'm not sure. But a lot of them use XT60, some use Andersons, some use barrels. So they'll almost always come with the solar adapter. So this will plug in to the adapter that then plugs into your battery. So yeah, I'll just get some little Velcro ties and Velcro that up nice and tight. So that's out of the way. All right, so moving on to some radio wiring. Then for the radio wiring, you're gonna wanna go down through the firewall. So there will always be these little nipples here, and you'll have to punch a new hole essentially through. That'll go through. There will already be a bundle of wires. Lexus has all kinds of stuff under here, so I had to remove a bunch of panels. But I can't really get down to where I see where my camera's pointing. But that'll come out through here. So that'll get your power and your antenna down where you need it. I'm actually going to put the radio in the glove box, but if you had it somewhere else, you may need to run it down, you know, under a panel and under the carpet or something, but I'm actually going to run it into the glove box. All right, so as is often the case with this kind of stuff, when I was pulling the wire through, I needed to come in through the glove box, but the glove box, you couldn't access the back of it at all. So I've never seen any other vehicle like so jam-packed tight with stuff. Like every square inch is taken. So anyway, I had to remove the lower kick panel kind of deal, which again, Lexus is the only vehicle that I've tweaked on that has covered that kind of stuff. And then actually the shin or the knee airbag section I had to remove as well. And then I took the glove box out. And while I had the glove box out, it was actually not closing properly. So I fixed that. I had to drill a little hole in it, and that is fixed and working properly now. And now I can drill a hole in it to fish the antenna wire and power for the radio, this 10 gauge wire, in. And while I was doing that and had all this stuff opened up, I figured, might as well go ahead and pull this panel up here and rewire or reroute the wires for my little copyright screen. So I ran those wires down. They'll come out here a little more hidden and sleeker. And I forgot, I think in this video I'm also talking about the new steering wheel I installed. All right, so next we'll make some ring terminals for the radio. I like this. I'm not really brand specific, but the adhesive lined shrink tube. And then if you do any amount of wiring, get yourself a pair of these. There may be better brands out there, or better ones, but the Irwin one works just fine. It's basically a, I don't know what they're called, auto wire stripper. You just put the wire in there and then strip it. So I'm hooking radio up to the Garmin. I have the nice sleeved line coming out, tucked up high up there, so you can't really see it until it gets back over here. So positive into the Garmin and then ground the wire there. All right, I don't know what's going on. Hit record and filmed stripping that, and it wasn't recording, I guess. So I'll just show you how this works on a just cut off piece of wire. So you set the depth of it with this little adjustable here, basically how much wire you want exposed, and then you just stick it in, hit the stop, and then it strips it like magic. I don't know why I waited so long to get one of these. I mean, I've had it for like maybe 3 years or something, but man, it's nice. All right, so got everything buttoned up pretty nice. So this is the EMP shield and the Bluetti Charger 1 onto the extra terminal on the full throttle with the ground. I did sleeve the EMP shield wire. Let's see if I can get some little light down in here. So that's down in, kind of tucked down in there. Everything's wired to the Garmin. Everything's grounded. So most of the wiring is buttoned up. I just need to come over here now and terminate this into an Anderson. So got the radio under here and the antenna coming into it, and I ran the mic and the head unit wires, basically the Cat 6, down underneath there, and then I still need to clean it up on the other side, but that's going to run to the head unit over there. Here I like to terminate my radios in Anderson, so this is just the Yaesu T adapter that goes to Anderson. So then I will Anderson plug here, and just I've kind of adopted Anderson. I mean, the whole amateur radio community and a bunch of other things, but Anderson's kind of nice. So you get your own little terminals, and then you do need a special crimper, basically this power pole crimper, and then you can make your own connections, and I've made, I don't know, dozens, hundreds of them. So I'll do that now. So then you got your special crimped ends. Those guys slide into these. These can take up to 45 amps. I use the 30 amps most of the time, so it's really overkill for a radio. But they come in 15, 30, and 45, but I usually go for the 30s. That is also the max of what Garmin Power Switch can do on a single port, essentially. So if I wanted to run basically a splitter off of this, I have a bunch of Anderson splitters, and I wanted to run 2 radios or whatever, I could handle that on the same wire gauge and port on the Garmin. So kind of upsized. This is a little overkill just for a radio, but might as well. Okay, power wired up. Here's the moment of truth. Plug that into switch 5. Let's see if we have power. Oh yes. Actually, I haven't set this 500 up, so I got to import all my settings from another radio, but we are in business. Okay, so here we have the Bluetti Elite 200 plugged into the Charger 1. So it comes with a little adapter cable, and so that takes the MC4s here. The cable that this one came with actually has dual MC4 inputs. So if you, for instance, had 2 solar panels running in parallel or something to plug in, it has that. That's actually nice. That's one of the first adapters I've seen that just has it natively like that. But anyway, right now, I'm connected to the charger here, and you can see 13.7 volts incoming, charging at 225 watts, out at 27 volts. So you can change that here. You have to unplug it. So you can see right here, going in 221 watts. This is saying 224, so 3 watt difference, which is to be kind of expected within reason. So now you can change the charging voltage. On this device, you can see actually it says right here on the port, 12 to 60 volt capable. So that's the range that I can set this to. So 27 volts. you can select from their list. So it looks like it at least has all the Bluetti stuff. I wonder if it has like other brands. No, they can keep track of all the other brands. So custom, accept. So now we can go to 56 is the max. So that's below the 60 volt maximum here. Okay, 56 volts. Disconnect the device before adjusting. Yep, now it's making the change. Wait 90 seconds before connecting the power station to avoid damage. All right, so we'll wait and then we'll connect it at 56 volts and see what it's charging at then. Okay, so we've successfully updated to 56 volts, 14.1 volts going in. This number will change a little bit depending on what your alternator is doing. So it's at 14.1 volts right now, 56 volts, and silent charging probably is just to adjust how fast it charges. So let's plug it in now and see what happens. All right, so it looks like it's outputting, has relatively stabilized at about 560 watts. Again, slight variance of what it's showing there, but that's to be expected. So now we're charging off of the same device at 56 volts at 560 watts. So much stronger, much faster than, you know, your cigarette lighter. And it's nice because, again, universal. So if you have a device that needs a lower voltage input, you can adjust the voltage and use the same charger for kind of whatever device you want. So if you're going out on a bigger trip, you need a bigger device that allows more voltage, or you have a little device just because you want to, you know, power something small and it doesn't have as high of a voltage input. Just make sure, there's a lot of disclaimers and stuff in the app obviously, but just make sure the voltage that you select does match your station. So basically I can put this doesn't quite fit unfortunately under, so I need to lay it on its side and just slide it under there. But then I can charge it on the go, and then it'll be much easier to keep topped off. Now, let's talk a little bit more. All right, so I got everything buttoned back up, all the panels back in. So now these wires run down. I actually added a little grommet there for make that look a little nicer. Those wires come down under, and then they actually need to plug into the auxiliary input there, and then the little cigarette lighter power for it. I tried powering that off of other USB-Cs and it didn't seem to like it, so I just used the one that came with it. I reran a couple other wires a little nicer while I was in there. I do need to mount this up to this removable tray actually. So I'll do that at some point, but it's all wired up. Power coming in, antenna coming in, and then the head unit and the microphone wires go underneath and over there. So they come under, actually very clean underneath there. The microphone comes out there, so I got to figure out a little mount for it. Right now it's just resting there, and then the wire comes up this trim and then into the unit there. So from here, this is a nice view when it's closed. Basically this visibility is already blocked with the A pillar here. So I'm not really losing any visibility with this here. It's nice, it's easy to see. Again, this console in the Lexus is just so busy that there's not really a good spot to put it where I'm not blocking something. So as I was really imagineering where to put this spot was nice. This actually, so I popped the little cover open, found a piece of hardware. I forget what it was, like an M6 or M7 or I don't remember. You'll have to try it. But with a little spacer and then a properly threaded bolt So spacer behind it, and then this is a 20mm ball just mounted there. There was some argument online whether that would get in the way of the side impact airbag. I believe it won't, but I'm not sure. Maybe this will pop me in the face one day. I'm guessing it comes out of here, not like below the handle, but maybe this whole section comes out. I don't really know. But anyway, it's there with an arm to an angled arm down there. Shed some light on this mystery. An angled arm to a ball, and then the ball into the back of the unit. So that's pretty adjustable. It's placed exactly where I want it. It's not blocking the window defrost vent. It's not blocking the regular vent. It's in honestly, a pretty optimal location. Hand on the wheel here. I can still just kind of mess around with the knobs and buttons. I kind of like having stability. In my Tundra, I have it mounted here, and I can rest my hand on the shifter and just kind of control it, and that was nice. So this will be kind of similar. I can mess around with that a little bit. And so that is nice, functional. And then in the back here, I just added a piece of basically Velcro on each side. So tuck that in nice and tight. I got a couple exposed wires here, but this is really, you'll see, normally the seat back is like this. So there's just this gap there. That's where this gap is. And this is tucked high and tight out of the way, but I can still access it if I need to. This closes. Everything is nice there. And then you can see it's back up there, kind of tucked out of the way. So then when I put storage in here, I still essentially have all of the storage all the way to that back seat, just a little bit up there. And actually the connections are kind of tucked behind this wall, so those won't really get bumped. And then, so I like hood mounted antennas. I'll show you in a second why. And then I just got a few of these little 3M wire holders to run that down nicely. Again, through the firewall there. And then clean this up a little bit. Mounted the EMP shield down there out of the way, but still where I can see it. I did shroud all these wires coming in, and I think I showed you this already, but this is the actual battery. So yeah, pretty nice. You can see thicker gauge wire for that 30 amp going in there, and that's on into this. So you can control this via Bluetooth, or if you ever manually need to turn off or on a button here, these control my side lights. So yeah, sweet. So then when the hood is closed, I was saying I like hood mount antennas. Like the true ham guys don't love the hood mounts. It's wide angle, so this antenna looks even crazier than it actually is. In a perfect world, you put it, ham guys drill holes through their roof so they can mount an antenna in the perfect place for their ground plane and everything. I like this, 2 reasons. 1, it's easy. 2, I kind of just aesthetically, for whatever reason, like how it looks, and I have consistency. So my trucks have hood antennas as well. All of the trucks will have it. And then the other thing is I try to get an antenna that's about the same height as the vehicle. So this is actually 1 inch about, eyeballing it, about 1 inch higher than my Pelican case. And that is nice when you're driving. You basically have the antenna as a height gauge. So if you're going in a parking garage or under a branch or whatever, you can get a pretty good estimate of how tall your vehicle is right out front. So the antenna is actually serving dual functions. The other reason is I go through drive-through car washes, And it's easy for me to remember when my antenna is there versus if it was back there, I would forget it and I wouldn't be able to go. So that way I can pull this off and put a cap on when I go through a car wash, and then I'll be good to go. And then it keeps my height low overall. Like I have an 8-foot garage door here that I park in. So if I had an antenna that was even nearly this big, I wouldn't be able to come in the garage. So that is that. Pretty nice little setup. And I apologize, I don't know if I said it earlier. Whenever I film these videos, I should really just use a little DJI Osmo or something, because these cameras actually struggle with focus. It doesn't really know what to focus on, so focus is kind of in and out, so I apologize on that. So let's talk a little bit more. I mentioned earlier I was going to tell you why I did something like this instead of a dual battery setup. Now, if you're interested in dual battery setup, I am going to put a dual battery setup in this. This is going to be a camper build, and I'm going to do a dual battery. It didn't make as much sense in this because, well, let me tell you. Okay, dual battery versus something like the Bluetti Charger one. The Bluetti Charger one is nice because it's simple. It's one wire to the battery, one wire to that, and then an easy disconnection to charge a power supply. Dual battery setups are better if you're running some dedicated DC outputs. You have some lights you want to power all the time, camp lights, or you want to, you have a built-in big battery array with an inverter because you have an induction cooktop, or you're running a refrigerator 24/7, or you have it hooked into solar and you have a more complex energy system. Like dual batteries make sense for a lot of people. More, I would say, expedition builds or camper builds, stuff like that. Or, again, like I put a dual battery in the Tundra so I could have I was nerding out on comms at the time, and I was like, I want all this Anderson ports and ability to run comms and all this and throw up a solar panel and do all that stuff. And that was cool. No regrets there. But I was alluding to, with this setup in the Lexus, I don't have a rooftop tent. This is not typically my solo adventure mobile. This is kind of the family adventure vehicle. And when I'm going out with family, if you guys don't know, I have a family of 5 plus 2 dogs. So I have 2 little kids, 1 older kid, and so that's like car seats, and they're different stages of crawling and walking, and then I got a teenager that kind of wants her own space and doesn't want to share a rooftop tent with us or anything like that, obviously. So a rooftop tent doesn't make any sense. So we're doing ground tents a lot of times. Maybe eventually I'll get a little trailer or something. I'm not really sure. But for now, we're going out and we're doing ground tents. So either this vehicle is going out, taking us out for just a day trip to hang out and have a picnic or whatever, and I don't need a dual battery setup for that, or we're in a ground tent. Where this makes sense is if I'm in a ground tent, then I can pick up the whole power source. Again, this is the Bluetti Elite 200. Bluetti did send me this stuff. Well, I don't know if I mentioned that earlier or not, but they sent me it. I wanted to try it out. They sent it out. They wanted me to let them know how it was, and I'll report back to them later. But I do like the voltage adjustability, all the stuff I talked about earlier. But fundamentally, little charger, easy to install, powers a power supply that I can pick up and take to the ground tent. So maybe I don't like camping at campgrounds, so not really that, but maybe we're at a site where it's not like maybe you park and then a few hundred feet away is where we're actually going to be camping. So I'm not right next to the car. So that way this thing charges, then you pick it up and you take it to the campsite, and then it's got everything. Again, a dual battery setup, like the dual battery setup of my Tundra, I don't have an inverter in it because it's all DC. But if we were going out, maybe we're doing a projector, maybe we want to bring a gaming console or whatever, now we have inverter, tons of USB plugs, all this stuff. If I want to charge it with solar, if again we're far away and I want to bring some solar panels, this has MPPT controller built into it. So having a portable setup like this, like you guys are no stranger to these things. I use them all the time. I have used them all the time. But for the LX dual battery setup versus this made a lot more sense for the portability aspect of it. Also, dual battery setup, everything involved in it. Again, a lot of wiring and extra weight, and the battery's weighing you down, and then it's taking up storage capacity, stuff like that. Especially in like the Lexus, that there's not a bunch of nooks and crannies that I could tuck a dual battery setup away. It would just be taking up storage space all the time, which isn't awesome. This I won't have in the vehicle usually. I'll usually just not have a dual battery setup, not have this, and if we're going to the zoo or whatever, I don't need a dual battery setup. So it's not adding extra weight to the car. It's not adding extra space. So yeah, that was why I decided on this. Again, dual battery setup makes sense in some places, and then something like the Bluetti Charger 1 makes sense in other places. So cool. So one other thing I wanted to do was get rid of this ugly steering wheel. So I've gone through and wrapped or deleted most of the wood throughout the cabin. The last thing to update is this guy right here. Unfortunately, I have what it is updating to. This was a huge shout out again to my man, Sexy LX570 on Instagram, because he did it and I am just copying him. So for starters, we just pop these two little covers off, and there's a T30 here. So I'm gonna remove that and basically take the steering wheel off. I'm gonna see if I can transfer basically the airbag deployment thing from this to the new one. I've seen some mixed things online, so we're gonna get into it and see. All right, so I was hoping this would be plug and play. So this is basically the airbag deployment thing. So we'll pop these two guys off. These two clips come off. One of these matches my new wheel. This one is also 2 wires, but it's horizontal. This is a vertical plug, so I'm gonna dick around. I may need to splice this and change it, and then I think there's 1 ground wire, and then we'll be good to go. All right, so all in. There's a little bit of work. I transferred over the airbag deployment little buttons. That was no real issue. The steering wheel goes on a little bit different with some retaining pins instead of the Torx, but not all of these buttons apply to the my gen of Lexus. Like, I don't have lane assist or adaptive cruise or anything, but all of the buttons that can map to anything do work. Volume, modes, actually the phone button, though I don't use that. And then this actually scrolls through the menu items there. So these buttons work. So, I mean, huge visual upgrade, but also just feels good. Like, makes the vehicle feel much more modern. And this is really, if you think about it, this is the thing that's right in front of your face. It's the thing that you actually touch and hold. So, man, kind of a nice little upgrade. One thing sorely missing back here, especially with the tailgate while camping, is there's no factory lights. So I went ahead and added this guy to add some great illumination down here. All right, so I got the hatch of the LX pulled apart a little bit. This is a little access panel that goes up into that hole right there. So I'm wiring up a dual color light with a 3-way switch, and then just a little toggle switch there, basically a momentary switch. So the momentary switch I'm tying in to the hatch release. So as this sits here, you'll tie the momentary wires into the middle and the left wire as it sits like that. I fish that wire through back here. Since momentary switch, all it really does is touch the 2 wires together. The wiring orientation doesn't really matter there. So I'll connect that to this little switch here. And I got this one, I don't know if you can see. Because it's kind of recessed. Like I think this will be a hard button to accidentally hit. So anyway, I know my focus isn't great, but that's basically the hatch release. I haven't tested it with the button yet, actually. I've just connected the wires. And then the three-way switch basically has a positive and negative coming off. If you can see, the rest are connected together. And for that, there is a little switch up in here that I need to disconnect, just a plug, and then splice into those. Okay, sweet victory. So that'll basically go on. This button's actually pushing a little bit against the closure, so I'll need to carve that out a little bit. But the momentary button works. It doesn't do anything, at least on this model, until it's actually in there. Same as this button doesn't do anything until it's actually closed though. So now we got amber, off, white. This will, if you can see, lights on, turns off. When it opens, and I don't know, I think it turns on too fast for you to actually see, but automatically on when it opens, assuming the switch is on. So that's pretty nice. You'll see me putting this stuff to use kind of later. I'm actually have some ground tents that I'm gonna be testing out, some new ones to me. Well, I don't have them yet, they're coming. They're on the way. And with that, I'll probably bring diesel heater and power stuff, and yeah. So this kind of setup will be sick. So that's basically why. And then, yeah, this little light, the steering wheel. Oh, there's a lot of little projects I knocked out. Hopefully I remember to film everything along the way, but if not, it is what it is. All right, I'll put links to all this stuff down below. I may have I probably have coupon codes and stuff. If I do, I'll put them down below, but also I appreciate you clicking my links, because as often as possible, those are affiliate links, and that's a big part of how I make money on the channel. You guys, if you see something interesting, you want to buy it, use my links. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Leave me a comment down below. Did you like this kind of video where I'm just walking you through not only what I'm doing, but kind of the why behind it? Maybe. I'll do more. Actually, I'm planning to do more of them because I'm doing lots of stuff. So let me know down below. And then specifically, if there's stuff you want to see, like people like to see time lapses and stuff. There was nothing I really did in this that would make a good time lapse, I don't think, but maybe some other stuff I do. Cool. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Until next time, take care.